industry, I got into AV installation. Has anyone here ever heard of Crestron? Crestron's a company that makes home automation. You'll see these tablets sitting on a conference room table. You'll hit the button, and projectors will turn on, lights will turn off, shades, blinds will close, all different kinds of stuff. So I got into that, and that lasted for a grand total of 4 months before the company went belly up. 4 grand total, 4 months. That's all I got. After that, I got out of the programming business and into wire pulling and installation. I installed projectors at Art Institute of Atlanta. I did wire pulls at the cheap place for buying consumer goods, not Best Buys. It's cheaper than that. No, that's actually the Swedish group.
HSK?
Which one?
HSK?
No, I can't recall. Anyways, it's huge.
Brand Smart?
Brand Smart, that's it. Brand Smart.
Oh, the one that just closed up?
Huge collections of wire pulls getting covered in dirt.
Did you hear the one that closed up?
I don't know. Which
the one in Busby, it closed up.
Busby. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
The one I worked on was in Buford up in Gwinnett. Anyways, wire pulling has nothing to do with code. I highly recommend you don't do that job unless you like climbing tall ladders, wearing out your knees, and getting sinfully dirty.
I did that for Walmart.
There you go. Walmart's probably another difficult job. So in 2009, I started working for a gentleman by the name Todd Michaels. He was doing marketing, and this was my inroad into learning coding. He said, I have emails that are just HTML and HTML, and I need you to rewrite them and rebuild them. Little did I know this was the crappiest job I could have ever asked for. But I did it, and I did it as well as I could. I moved from there on to websites for WordPress, and from there I went into hand-rolled custom websites that we would wind up editing. In the end, 2010, I started my job hunt. I was like, this is not a big enough company. There's one man and me, and he can't afford to pay me any more money, so I had to go search for another one. So my breakthrough came from a gynecologist. Not joking. There's a big story behind this. If you go to dinner and you really want to hear it, I'll tell you how a marketer, a gynecologist, and a businessman that I knew, those 3 people got me my next job. That's with Cool Blue, and that's the one I've had. But without her, I would never have made it. Now, I didn't go see the gynecologist. She just happened to know some people. It worked out. But I'm telling you, it doesn't matter who you know. Those people know people who then can find a job for you. It is getting out there and letting people know what you do. You want to let everybody at church, you want to let every friend you know, you want to come up with 20 seconds that says, this is what I do. This is what I know, this is what I want to do. You need 20 seconds because they have to be able to, first of all, memorize it, because they're going to have to figure it out when they run into somebody and go, hey, do you do this? Yeah, I think I have a friend who could help you with that. Great. That's what you need to do. Condense it down, get out, and get to know people. This is the first website I ever built fully, soup to nuts, for Cool Blue. It's Viral Hepatitis Action Committee. They're trying to get out the word about hepatitis, what it is, what it isn't, and spread the information that, positive information about it. CDC Foundation, which is a money-raising arm for the CDC, pays for these websites to be built, and we build lots of these. Every year we get a new initiative from the CDC Foundation, and this is excellent money-making material. Lots of code, lots of work, lots of support work, and they need a content management system, so this worked out fantastic. After I got my job, I took and did everything I could do to do new work. It didn't matter what the ticket was. If somebody grimaced, I went and grabbed it. If it had to do with a cake programming, if it had to do with a server maintenance, if it had to do with anything, I wanted to get my fingers in it because I had never been in a company that actually had this many employees and this much work to do. So I found server work to do that was outside my range. I found code work that I had no earthly idea how to do it. I bought books and learned it. I did everything I could possibly do to get the experience, and that has paid off major dividends later on. As a matter of fact, 12 months later, the lead developer for the company left for phase 2. Much more money, that's why he left, and that put me in the position to do what he used to do. And if I hadn't picked up all those little crazy crap tickets, and I hadn't worked those extra hours, and I hadn't learned all of this wildly expanding knowledge base from just PHP and HTML, I wouldn't have been able to do that. They would have hired somebody else and I would have been stuck back as a junior developer. This business turns people over every 2 years. If you expect to live with a company more than 2 years, you're kidding yourself. I've been here 4, and I don't know why. But everyone you talk to says they move to new businesses, they're going to move from one to another, and every year they'll have turnover, but every 2 years you can expect to either be looking for another company or being downsized and move to another company. The web business is very fast paced. Some companies actually hold people longer, but I would definitely say that you want to grab what you can from a company for 2 years, because at the end of that 2 years, you're just living on borrowed time. I don't mean to be mean, and I don't mean to be callous, but this business turns people over. And the other reason it turns people over is because what you know today is worthless in 2 years. Okay, what I learned 2 years ago, I don't do anymore. What I knew 2 years ago wouldn't get me any kind of work today. In fact, we had a guy send us a resume. He was excited about getting a job with us. He's not been in the business for 6 years, and we haven't figured out what in the world the guy knows 6 years ago that he would still be useful today. Every 2 years, every year you need to be learning something, but every 2 years you pretty much run out. This is my favorite one, only because a lot of people will turn down work that looks too difficult. I say go grab it. As long as it looks profitable, go for it. So my day, I spend 9 to 6. We don't work like long hours overnight. I don't work weekends. I don't get to play ping pong. We don't have crazy, what are those, segways rolling around the office. We're a small office, there's about 6 of us. There's 2 of us who do coding, and everybody else are supporting the coding work, whether it's a designer or a salesperson or a manager. I spend about 1/3 of my time in a year doing new construction. That would be like viral hepatitis. I spend 1/3 of my time doing salvage work. That's somebody who calls up and says, "Oh my God, my site's blown up!" And then we've never seen it, we have to go in and fix it. That's salvage work. What can we keep? What do we have to throw away? What's actually fixable? What's actually broken? Was it hacked? Do we have to fix the database? Salvage work. Maintenance, that is a large portion of this 1/3, which is clients need change, code changes, you have to update it, constantly maintaining images, client has new content and it breaks the site, happens all the time. And then 1/3 is meeting and planning. I hate to tell you this, but no matter how good you are at coding, they still drag you into a meeting. You still have to talk in a meeting. It stinks. I go back to the picture, face in the corner, text editor. I don't like these meetings. Sometimes I like the planning where somebody asks me questions about what we can code. We start trying to work things out and we're talking bigger pictures, big ideas about what we can and can't do. That I like, not so much the meetings. A typical web project takes 4 months start to finish, and more than often it takes 6. And the reason is because somebody comes in and says, "My website stinks and I need a new one." Well, we say, "What kind of content do you have?" "Well, that stinks too." Okay, so we need content, we need design, and we need development. And so we start all the way back with the content. We start talking about what can we get content-wise, what can we manufacture, what can we repurpose, what do we need to keep. Then we do wireframes, which says where is all this going to live. Then we start doing comps that say how it's going to look. And then finally, after all of that, the last 4 weeks, typically the last 4 weeks, I get to do work. And the problem is those last 4 weeks are already under pressure because we're already behind schedule and we're already ready to be launched. So you get 4 weeks. Now the worst part about that, 1/3 of that is QA. So you're going to finish and you're going to be like, "Yes!" And then they're going to turn around and say, "No, we need these changes," or "You missed this in the comp," or "This doesn't work with this content," or "This image from the client is too big," or something like that. And so you'll spend 1/3 of your time fighting back the bugs, the changes, and the QA. So usually we spend 4 weeks and then it takes us a whole nother week to catch up with the date. But that's a typical day, a typical project, a typical way I spend my days as a web developer. Don't even know what's coming next. It's all in the code. How many people here play with GitHub? 2, 3, maybe. All right. If you don't play with GitHub, don't sweat it. It's a friendly kind of place, and this is kind of the graphs you'll get to see on the right-hand side. But what's great about GitHub is the use of Git. It helps you maintain your code. It helps you fix problems that you broke that used to be working. It helps you find changes. It helps you understand how the code is evolving. I do management work. I have a couple of people who do development. I use GitHub religiously to review their code. There is currently, in this database of the Atlanta Jewish Film Festival rebuild, on day one we had 45,000 lines of code. That was Drupal and a collection of modules, 45,000 lines I didn't have to write, like that, instantly. Over time, we've added all the way up to 1,166,000 lines of code. Now, I've looked at this and I thought that number was a little high. I think there's about 100,000 lines of caching that accidentally got put in here, but let's just call it 1 million, can we? 1 million. As of today, we're up to 1,200, so we've added another 40,000. That's not going to be cached. We made 1.3 million additions, 227,000 deletions, and we've committed over 190 times. I can go to Git and pull any one of these commits and revert the site immediately back to this commit. So at any point in time, if somebody commits code and breaks it, I can go backwards. This is just a graph of the code. This shows you how much code came in early. So between October and when we launched, this is all the work that we did. Big work, review, big work, review, big work, review, launch, right here. Some pickup things where we change them later. My favorite part of this graph is, this is me, Cool Y. This is the developer who was helping me, so he did a lot of work. I came in after his work and did my work. But for some reason I pulled 82 lines of code out. 82. There's freaking 1.2 million, but there were 82 of them that just had to go. Had to go. It's crazy, I didn't even know that. 82 lines were replaced by me. Now these would be replaced, so if I just change one letter, one number, one parentheses, that's a deletion. As soon as you take a line and make one change to it, you've deleted the original line. Anyways, out of 1 million, I only changed 80, subtracted 82 and added 3,000. I also would like to make the point that if anyone has the concept that they want to go out and write code whole cloth, like today you want to start with a blank text file and you want to build a website, I get 45,000 lines of tested code from Drupal. Every bit of it's tested. It's got user interface, it's got file management, it's got hack proof. Every single month there are updates to what makes this thing secure. You can't avoid starting with some kind of code base, whether it's Drupal, CodeIgniter, Symfony, Laravel, anything like that that has a group of people behind you helping you write this code. It's a huge asset. Nobody writes from scratch. Nobody. I don't know anyone in the business who starts from scratch. It's just not economical. You can't afford the development time that those 45,000 lines buy you. So, it's all in the code. My job is to write code all day. Curly braces and semicolons are my favorite. Those are my favorite punctuations. So, some people ask me, how do you get a job doing code? First of all, get good at writing code. Get good at writing it. Get used to writing it. Be able to tell people how good you are at writing it. Be able to tell people what you like about writing code. So when we get information from people who say they want a job with us, the one thing that pisses us off the most is they haven't read the posting. They will say crap and you're like, we don't want that. We don't need that. What is it that you read in this job posting that says we need somebody who speaks, I don't know, COBOL? I mean, crazy stuff. Have the skills that are on the listing. If you don't have the skills, then don't apply for them. It wastes your time and theirs. It's going to quickly become apparent. Live examples of work. If you're somebody who does web development and you can't point to a live URL, you're missing the point. We want live code that's functional. I don't care if it's your friend's squeegee collection that winds up on a website. I don't care. The other day, somebody sent me one for puppetry. Apparently, there's a pretty big puppetry group here in Atlanta that uses Drupal. Okay. I have no qualms about puppetry, but he can point me to websites he's worked with. I got no interest in them, puppetry that is, but I get to see his sites. I get to read his code. I get to see how it works. I get to see what's broken. That's what we want, live examples. Java is a little bit of a trick. You're going to have to provide them some kind of zip of a code base. I'm not really sure you can do live pieces that would be easy to get to, but you're going to have to find some way to read code. If I can't read your code, I'm never going to even call you. Just not going to. Interest in getting an interview. It's amazing to me how many people are trying to get a job before they get the interview. Your only job from the point at which you've read the posting until you get face-to-face is to get the face-to-face. That's all you want. You want to talk to them. You want to speak to them if you have to, whatever process they have. But what you want to succeed at is a face-to-face. Always sell the end of a face-to-face. So if I'm on the phone with you and I say, it's been nice talking with you, we'll be in touch, your first things to say before you hang up the phone is, it was fun talking to you too, when could I expect to have an interview, a face-to-face interview? Be bold. Find out an answer to that. Sometimes just getting the question out and getting people to answer that is a big help in your direction. Somebody the other day, we were in an interview, and the gentleman said, God, it was like a car salesman, it was awesome. So, is there anything keeping you from making me an offer today? This was in the face-to-face, so he's trying to sell the job sale. You know, I really appreciate it. The guy really showing me he wants the job, right? I said, yes, my boss. He has to, I have to talk, and then we'll be in touch. He did eventually get a job with us, but the point is you have to be aggressive about your job hunt. There are lots of people out there who want a job in web development. A lot of them don't have the skills. If you get the skills from this school and you can show them, then you are a leg up on a lot of the people I see coming through my office every day. Learn about the company. It really, really helps. Not me. I don't care. I really don't. If you can't code, I want you out. But if you know about the company, you're going to impress the managers, you're going to impress the owners, you're going to impress the salespeople, and we talk to every one of those. I can't hire somebody without getting management, sales, and owners' approval. So don't worry about whether I like it, that you know about the company, but know about it. Know about the type of business. How big is it? Ask a question that's pretty leading, like, so what are your expectations for the next 5 years for the company? You ask the owner that, he's excited because he wants to tell you, because he's a businessman, and that's what he does in business. He doesn't want to tell you about code. He doesn't know anything about that. Know about the company. And last but not least, probably I've said it over and over, sell yourself. You are selling yourself to get an interview. Don't discount what you know and sell it. A lot of times I'll talk to people over the phone and they'll be shy, and they'll be timid, and we'll cover that in a second, but you can't be shy in a job conversation. I'm the best person, I know these skills, I can do what you're asking of. I know HTML, I know Drupal, I know CSS, I've done it many times. Here's my examples. Sell yourself. So we're down to the end. I think I've skipped something. Maybe I haven't. Let's go back one. I do want to talk about the interview process, that last bit. And that's going to happen with me on the phone. You had a phone call with me, correct? We chatted over the phone. We talked about skills. So a phone conversation with a technical geek is sometimes a frightening position. I've been there. The guy on the other end of the phone, you don't know. You're pretty sure he knows more than you do. And you're pretty sure that you're going to answer something wrong. Trust me, we're not worried about that. In all phone conversations, I don't care what the answer is. I want to hear how you give me the answer. So my list is a list of frameworks, Linux distributions, JavaScript code bases, CMSs, anything I can do to ask you about it. And when I go down that list, I'm going to say, would you answer, so I'm trying to find out information about you. And I'd like to know your skills. So some of these you're not going to have any skills for, and you can tell me 0. Some you may have a lot. You can tell me 5. But I want to know your rating from 0 to 5. We'll go through them quickly. Honestly, I don't want you to go quickly. I really want you to tell me something that you know. So the first thing I'll ask is Drupal. And you'll say, I know how to spell it. That's it. All right, so that's a 0. That is not a bad answer. That's an honest core answer that says you only know how to spell this. Now, if I really, really, really want Drupal, that is a real deal breaker. But if there are other things that I want, then that may not be the end of it. My next favorite question is WordPress. How many people have ever worked on WordPress? Okay, so my standard question is, so WordPress, how would you rate yourself? Most people will come up with something simple like 3, all right? And then they'll leave it. That's not what I want. I don't care about the rating. What I care about is what you say. For example, you can say 5, love WordPress, favorite thing. I have built that many, many times. I've themed it here and here and here. I haven't built any modules, but I guarantee you I could definitely theme a WordPress site without any kind of problems. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear that you're confident, that you know what you're doing, and that you have some kind of skills that you can tell me that it has to do with theming. And then I'm going to ask you, well, have you done any shortcodes? Have you? Have you built any shortcodes? No, that's fine. That's a fine answer. But what I would rather hear, if I'm interested in WordPress, is, yeah, I've dabbled with shortcodes. I've done that to help me do some layouts. I don't feel comfortable with it, but I've done shortcodes, right? That's what I want to hear. I want to hear that you actually know what you're talking about in that framework. I'll do the same thing with Drupal. If you start leading me down that path, I'll ask you what your favorite hook is. Anybody who's played with Drupal has a favorite hook. I know it doesn't make sense to anyone who doesn't, but if you're in Drupal and you can answer that question, what's your favorite hook, then I understand you've done it. I understand you've been there. That's what I'm looking for. Some people say 5 for everything. Those people don't get jobs. They just don't, because I don't believe them. If you don't have some zeros in the list of stuff that I have to ask you, then you probably aren't listening to me. I also have 2 trick questions, and I'll tell you one. A trick question is a question that either doesn't have an answer or has an answer that should be negative. And the first question I ask is, so how many times have you built servers from the ground up? Everybody says, oh, I love building servers from the ground up. Then I find out later they don't really do it, because I ask them, I say, well, how many times have you built an Ubuntu machine? They go, oh, I've done that. It's 1204. I love that one. I go, great. So what about a CentOS machine? Oh, those are easy. I like those too. I've built quite a few of the CentOS 4s and 5s. Okay, what about Red Hat? I really don't like those too much. I haven't done much with them. Okay, here's the trick. Red Hat and CentOS are the same thing. Literally. Red Hat is a company that makes the version. Then they go through the instructions, the documentation, they rip out the word Red Hat and produce CentOS. That's what CentOS is. If you don't know the difference between Red Hat and CentOS, don't pretend that you build one and not the other. Those are exactly the same one. My other trick question I'm not going to tell you. But there are questions that we ask that we want negative information about. One more that I love to hear about is your favorite command line editor. Does anyone have one? I have one. No? Nobody? Okay, so this would come in play if you were being asked, do you build servers? And then do you build servers? Then you have a command line editor. If you tell me you build servers and you don't have an opinion about command line editors, there's a lie. I don't know which one, but one of these is a lie. You're probably using GoDaddy and you click buttons and then you have a server, and that's considered building a server. That is not building a server from the ground up. The reason, if you build a server and you have to type and cut and edit a config file, you have to use a command line editor. You can't do it any other way. There's no FTP to the root. There's no way to get in there and do anything. You have to do it through a command line editor. So that's sort of a trick question, but it's something that I use for people who say they build servers, because I really want to know that you actually do this. Now, let's say that in this instance, nobody here raised their hand, and everybody said, I don't build servers, I don't have a command line editor, and I don't like Red Hat or CentOS. That doesn't kill you from a job. Our objective as the developer, lead developer, is to find out the breadth of your knowledge. I know that this portion, you're not going to shell into my machines and do work. That's decided, no shelling for you. But there's plenty of other work. There's plenty of work to be done with HTML, CSS, PHP, all of that. Tons of work that you can do. There's tons of range that you can still fill in a developing studio. Anyone in here play with Photoshop heavily?
I was a graphic designer before I got into IT.
Fantastic. You're actually an interesting individual because your past job is now dying. Have you ever heard of prototypes?
Yeah, print is dying. That's why I got into
Fantastic. So we have a designer and he does Photoshop. This is an example of a skill that's no longer useful. It's helpful, but it's no longer useful. When we go to show a client, and it's on my laptop, maybe if we do dinner I'll show it to you, we build prototypes. We literally write HTML and CSS. We show the client what a responsive website looks like, and they go, yes, that's what you should build. We don't look at PSDs, we don't look at JPEGs, we don't look at PNGs, we don't look at flat files anymore. Because the world of responsive is here, and if you don't build responsive sites, you're probably not going to be in the business for much longer. So it's one of those things where skills are getting churned over, and Photoshop is a great one that surprisingly is getting less and less important. Still going to be lots of Photoshop work, you know, tweaking pictures, helping things look juicier and more entertaining. But that's definitely a skill that's on its way out. Did you say Flash? Flash. Ugh. I actually have a job to edit Flash tomorrow. I have to fix a ancient. It's a salvage job. It's a salvage job. Old Flash moved to a new location. Links no longer work. I have to fix that. Definitely my least favorite ticket. Okay.
Get Video Studio, turn it over to people.
Say that again.
Get Video Studio, turn it over to people.
I'd like to, but this one's very interactive and it's going to be interesting. All right, so then we get to the end. So this is the end of my speech. I promise I'll quit here in a minute. Code. Every chance you get, write code, write it publicly, show people your code. I highly recommend sharing code with each other and actually showing it to people. One of the just mind-boggling things about coders is they don't want to show you code. It's your living. It's the oil and the canvas of your life. Show your code. I know sometimes it's proprietary. I have non-disclosure agreements saying I can't do certain things, but all the rest of my code, show it. Show people. People will see it. They will criticize it. They'll change it. They'll say, hey, you should do this instead. And you'll say, hey, that might be a pretty good idea. You'll learn a lot. You will. You'll learn a lot. Code. Share it with other people. Network with everyone. I swear a gynecologist got me my job. I swear. It's the honest truth. Provide a cover letter. I don't know if I mentioned this before. This proves that you read our listing and that you have skills relevant to the job at hand. When you do a cover letter, you clearly state, I know your job, here are my skills, I want an interview. If you don't send us a cover letter, Angie won't read it unless we're going to laugh at you, or we'll put it in the, or it'll never make it to me. The cover letter is paramount. I can't tell you enough. We get tons of resumes that we just file away because we don't have time to read through an entire resume and figure out what this person wants out of us. It's just there's just too much busy noise in a day. Sell your face-to-face. This is what you want. This is the moment of truth. If you want the job, you've got to get here first. You've got to get in a face-to-face with a group of people in a conference room and talk to them. Got to do that. Learn about the company that's helpful. And lastly, always keep learning. My two things today are Knockout.js. Anybody heard of it? All right, Knockout.js, I'm learning that. And Node.js, server-side web server, HTTP server. Anyways, those are the two things I'm learning right now. I have books on my Kindle. I'm reading those every night. I'm trying to learn those because I don't know anything about them, and I've got to. The future of web development is microservices, and if in about 2 years, if you don't know what microservices are and you aren't writing stuff in microservices, you're going to get left behind. Anybody else heard that word? Two people. Microservices is pretty simple. It's really just another way of packaging the word API or web-based applications, either way you like to say it. But microservices is definitely the direction that everything I hear about today is headed. Responsive, microservices, and content management system. I'm exhausted. That's a lot of talking with WordPress. So, within the show and events, let's see. So, Bull Durham. So the image at the top of this page is part of the content for Bull Durham. The link that is a part of this ticket is part of the content for the Bull Durham node. This information right here at the top, called the header block, all comes from the content of the node. These two little pieces right here, which say world premiere and musical, those are a taxonomy on the node. You could do that with WordPress, you could, but you'd be hard pressed to push it in like that. The rest of this is content. Below this, we're holding photos and videos all on that one node. You go to that one node, you get it all. You cannot do that in WordPress. Then, my favorite part, I really love this one. People. This is a cast. Now, this is not on the node, but this is called as a node reference. So, Randy Aaron has a node, right? It's got his image, it's got his content information, and it has his name and an ID. Later on, we make what's called a role. He had a role for this show as the ensemble. Okay, so he was the ensemble. How does one person be the ensemble? Seriously.
Use a copy machine.
There we go. So Randy was part of the ensemble, and that's why he's here, right? So he gets pulled from somewhere else because of a third content called the role. Now, my favorite part is you can, just like IMDb, click on his picture. It will take you to Randy's Randy's page. This is his node. It has his face. Randy, don't you do anything more than this? All right, let's try this again. Apparently the ensemble is as far as he gets. So let's see. John.
His first job.
That's it. It's his first job in here. There's a lot of ensemble. All right. Okay, this isn't helping me. Okay, so I'll just say, had this been somebody who'd been with the Alliance Theater for a long time, every one of his shows would show up down here. Every one of them. And you'd be able to click on every one of those shows and leap to the show and see all the other people that he was with. You can click on another person and wiki walk your way back and forth all along. This is a node, which is a show, a node, which is a person, and another node, which is a role. And those things interrelate on what's called a node reference. This is the high-rise tenement. WordPress is the ranch neighborhood. If you need a ranch house, go build a ranch. Don't go take Drupal and try to build a ranch. It will hurt you. It will. It will. It's just too much effort. I build ranch houses and I build tenements, and that's why we picked Drupal. Joomla is on the social world, people interacting, users doing things. Joomla's fine for that. It sounds great. I've never done that, but I hear it's fine. There are a couple others, like there's a couple others. I'm sure they have value, and I'm sure they're useful. I haven't learned them. This is the one I know the most of.
Drupal has a big community.